Hello, and welcome to the First Time Founders podcast, the show where we talk about how to take a business from nothing and grow it into something meaningful. I'm Rob Lydiard. I'm an exited software founder, reformed corporate lawyer, and professional EOS implementer. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. We work with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial leadership teams to help them get more of what they want from their business. In particular, getting crystal clear on a vision for the organization, where a company's going and how it's going to get there, getting people executing with more discipline and accountability in service of that vision, and then helping leadership teams build more functional, healthy, and cohesive team dynamics. Because the truth is, in startups, we can be a little bit chaotic and dysfunctional. That's what I do for a day job. But when I'm not working, I love to talk to other entrepreneurs about their experiences. And on this episode today, I'm speaking to Rob Smith, one of the founders of Slick. Slick's a disruptive, fast growing platform for the hair and beauty industry. It does bookings, payments, payroll. It's a really wide product that's growing quickly now under Rob's stewardship. In this episode, Rob talks about what it's like to build for very demanding low-tech users like creative stylists and building what is a pretty complicated product. Now, in this episode, the key insight that you'll get from Rob is that sometimes you got to go slow to go fast. Got to understand your market, the nuances of the users that you're trying to sell to, so that you can build the right product and ultimately get on that exponential curve, exponential growth J curve that we're all looking for in the tech startup universe. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Rob Smith. Rob, welcome to the First Time Founders podcast. Thank you for doing this, my friend.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Yeah, really good. Really good. Thank you. Rob, let's dive straight in because you are the only founder that I know, or certainly the only founder that we've had on this fairly new show that does something as cool as working with creative stylists and hairdressers. We've had people running restaurants and boring B2B tech like my background. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be the most exotic episode so far. How the hell did you fall into doing what you're doing?
Yeah, great question. So it all probably started when I started learning French. Bizarrely, I've always loved France. So I did French at school, spent a lot of time out there skiing, and then ended up doing it at uni. So became fluent in French. Worked in France for a couple of companies, a ski company, a furniture company, and then I was really keen to use my sort of newfound skill. So ended up first at Renault, so in the automotive industry, and then ended up at L'Oreal. So slowly the sort of story's starting to make sense, and spent 6 years at L'Oreal in the professional division. So that's very much focused on the B2B professionals, so salons, barbers, spas, working on commercial marketing roles, and I guess great kind of grounding in sort of FMCG marketing, commercial, but it's a very old school industry. And as a
Right.
marketeer, it was quite challenging because you're looking to drive digital traffic, you're looking to drive footfall, both in terms of service sales, so color sales, but also in terms of retail products. And because it's a very analog industry, 70%, 65% of businesses still use pen and paper, so they don't have online booking. So you're faced with this conundrum of, well, how am I meant to be driving traffic when no one's got a website? I can't track anything because no one's taking online bookings. So how can I track if somebody's made a booking over the phone through WhatsApp, email? I can't. And so it was a huge challenge and a huge source of frustration. And that you're spending thousands of pounds on posters, and it's like, this is 2020 and we're doing posters.
Wow.
Well, how do we make this better? And you sort of tried to drive a lot of change internally, but it was challenging because you're trying to move an entire industry. And so I ended up actually quitting. Went to Philips and headed up their UK personal care marketing, so male, female beauty. And then just through my brother, got introduced to my co-founder, Steph, who was tackling it from had a sort of different perspective on it of, as a female consumer, working long hours, I can't book my hair and beauty online. I'm going to do something about this. And she'd worked on the Just Eat IPO, so was looking at tech platforms, how they were changing fragmented analog industries, and saw, well, look, I want to do something. I'm passionate about hair and beauty. I'm going to look at this. And we kind of got chatting, And so she kind of dragged me back into the hair and beauty industry. And that was where really House of Slick was born. And so everyone always laughs because she's got sort of the long, beautiful hair, and everyone assumes that she must be the kind of the hair and beauty expert. And they assume that I must be the sort of product or tech guy, but actually it's very much role reversal. I'm the one that sort of has that grounding in the hair and beauty industry from years at L'Oreal. So it's been an interesting ride, but it's been great almost to come back and use all those learnings to build something that really does work for the industry. And I think that's always been the sort of the challenges that so many businesses have tried to tackle the industry and use almost an off-the-shelf booking system that does work for restaurants, or it works for other resources, and it doesn't have that flexibility that the creatives in the hairdressing industry need. They are often, I think of them as accidental business owners. They've inherited a business from their mum, their dad, and they've been thrown the keys, and they're fantastic hairdressers, amazing colorists, real creatives, but they don't always have the sort of the strongest grounding in running a business. And so you've got to build something that's hyper complex because it needs to cater for millions of use cases, but you've got to wrap that in a UI and a framework that's very, very simple to use, because they're owner operators. The average number of staff is 3-4. So they're tiny, tiny businesses. They're very successful businesses, but they are the true owner operator. They're spending 5 minutes behind the till, 20 minutes cutting hair, then back behind the till, then cutting hair, then colouring hair, then cutting hair, taking a bill. They need to do a marketing blast. They need to then look at their inventory and place an order for their big colour house. They're juggling multiple tasks, and our challenge is, how do you simplify that, remove a lot of that administrative burden, but then give them the tools to digitally grow, but also connect with their consumers and the end clients, expecting that digital experience, that ease of booking that we get from restaurants, hotels, flights, and trying to bring that to high street. So it's a very simple problem, but with huge numbers of complexities.
I bet they are so demanding as customer types. Like, how close is what you're doing now to the original vision, and how hard has it been?
We're still very much on the original vision, which is, a lot of businesses have tried to approach this with a marketplace angle. And if we get enough demand through our platform, we can then sell that to the salons and basically just drive new clients in. Our view on it is that your average person just goes, I don't know about you, but certainly I'm the same. I go back to my barber. I don't want a new barber. I just want to be able to book with them when I want to book. And broadly within the hair and beauty industry, that's the same. Your client retention is very, very high. People have relationships with their hairdressers built over years. They don't want new clients. They just want a system to manage their existing clients. So we've always focused on that SaaS and that fintech angle, and then payments, as opposed to going through the sort of the marketplace angle. And it's really just been trying to build out the right features that our customers need, and working very closely with understanding, well, what are your fears about transitioning from pen and paper? Why will you not offer online booking? What are your fears about online booking? What could potentially go wrong? And then building the frameworks and the flows that gives them that flexibility and that creativity, but gives them enough that they can do it, but not too much that things start to go wrong. Because it's very different from booking a restaurant. A restaurant there's a table, the table seats 4. You're booking that out for 4 hours or 2 hours. You're not pre-ordering your food. So all you're doing when you're reserving a table at a restaurant is you're reserving a resource for a set period of time.
Right.
If you are booking a colour, you're potentially booking the length of time will depend on your hair length, on your texture, your porosity, what service you do, and the complexity of that service. That will then vary between different staff members. One staff member can do a full head of highlights in an hour and a half, another can do it in 2. So depending on who you select, then determines the time that's needed. That also then determines the price. So there's all of these sort of flows that we've got to cater for, and we have to cater for them in a way that reassures them to then actually get on board with what we're trying to do.
And did you know it? Did you know it was going to be that complex from a product perspective going in, or did that sort of dawn on you as you realised you needed to fulfil what the customer would need and want from you?
I think the product complexity is, like, let's be frank, we're not putting people on the moon here. We're getting people to book blow dries and colours. Like, it is complex, and it's trying to the complex part is having those complex flows, but wrapping it in a simple UI that somebody can just self-serve, who's come from pen and paper, who is, they are scared about technology. And it's reassuring them that actually, yeah, we can cater for this. We can design a system that actually reacts smartly. So people from an online booking point of view, they hate the idea of leaving gaps. That's why a lot of barbers don't take bookings. They do walk-ins because they want people to be booked back to back to back. There's no downtime, maximum efficiency. So we've built a system that essentially looks at your diary and goes, well, I'm not going to offer that slot because it would open up and leave a 15-minute gap. It would promote inefficiency. So I'm only going to offer the client certain times that basically allows that barber to be booked back to back. It's complex, but it's not rocket science. But it's then actually explaining to them, and this is the challenging part, is the go-to-market, is actually explaining to them that we have solved this kind of one of life's great mysteries. And yeah, we can do it. Does do what you want it to do. And they're looking at you disbelieving, going, I don't believe you. You show them, like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it's that mindset change that's the hardest bit. And I think that's the bit that we underestimated.
That's interesting. Even with a marketing background, right? That kind of,
Yeah.
Would you say most of your first time founder learnings were around go-to-market, would you say, rather than
100%.
kind of product? Oh, that's
100%.
interesting.
The product's is challenging for sure. But the hardest part is there are 55,000 hair and beauty salons in the UK. 60% of them are still using pen and paper. It's a mindset thing.
Can you just talk us through kind of the funnel that you've landed on? I mean, do you do like Facebook? Do you do like social ads to catch their attention? Do you do outbound? Do you do everything? I bet you've tried everything over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've been lucky. We signed kind of commercial partnership with L'Oreal to act as a lead source. So we've a lot of learnings there. Paid works to a certain extent, but then your analog audience who are using pen and paper, they're not massive users of social, so they're not there. A lot of B2B SaaS people you speak to will talk about LinkedIn. Most hairdressers aren't on LinkedIn, so running LinkedIn campaigns is just totally pointless. Search, again, people aren't searching for software, they're scared of it. So actually the most effective is, and it's sort of heresy to say in 2023, is old school outbound SDR. And so it's for us, what really works is that combination of actually outbound SDR, but then also we have a regional field team, and actually getting out there, going and visiting people on the high street. It's not, you have to be so careful that you're not over investing. You haven't just got people going up and down the high street where there's not an owner, but actually where you're quite targeted, having somebody walk through the door to somebody who is analog. It's a human business. You don't go into hairdressing to make millions. You go into it because you love working with people. And so when you're analog and you're being faced with a tech proposition, having somebody walk through the door and go, hey, look, let's sit down, let me show you. It removes a lot of those sort of barriers. It makes it a lot more human.
Did you do any physical cold calling back in the day?
Oh yeah.
Really? How did you find that? Like, did you find it horrifying, or were you quite natural at it?
I wouldn't say natural. It's something you've got to learn, but it's a great way of. I think one of our greatest strengths is it's a product that is built almost by our users.
Yeah,
and so a lot of that early feedback that we sort of took, both from a sort of genuine sort of user research, forums, etc., but also just stuff that you're gleaning from a core of, oh no, I'll never use a system because of X. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, could we build it so that we can counter that objection? Yeah, actually, that's something we've also heard. And you're piecing together different threads from existing users, prospects, people that have outright rejected your category, not even your product, your category.
Whoa.
And you're building up a huge knowledge base. We've got 8,000 pieces of kind of tagged feedback that we can kind of analyze and look at when we come to build something. What are people's fears? What are people's objections? And we can then build it in a way that works for them. And it's often the compliment I often hear the most, and is for me the greatest, is when people say it feels like a hairdresser has built this. Or a guy said to me, like, you must have been a barber because it's like you're in my head. Everything I've ever wanted from the system, it's here. It works the way I would want a system to be made. You must have worked in a barbershop. It's like, no, we've just listened to our customer. And that's why we've built a very, hopefully, intuitive, sticky platform that does work. And you've got people that were adamant they would never use tech and would always be analog, who are now using it and are growing their business. And that's the biggest joy that we get, is you see somebody who's gone from pen and paper to suddenly they're online, they're promoting their services, they're selling you gift vouchers, they're doing everything. And they've got their life back. They're not having to respond to Instagram messages or WhatsApps at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night about, can you book me in on Monday? People are just booking it. And it's the way it should be.
That's awesome. How long, for how long were you doing kind of all of the outbound or most of the outbound? I mean, do you still do any of that like walk-in stuff now? Or do you, like, because some founders do try and delegate sales away very, very quickly, don't they?
Yeah, I'd say that was one of my biggest learnings. I wouldn't, yeah, maybe mistake, if I maybe go as far as that, is probably stepping away too early.
Interesting.
And we got in a great head of sales it was very structured. But I probably still wasn't close enough to it. And actually I've come back in, because I think people give you different metrics of you should be founder-led sales until X million of ARR, and then you can do this, da, da, da. I think everyone has to work out what's right for you. But I think it's getting to the point of you've got that repeatable sales process, but yet our product's changing the whole time. The environment's changing the whole time. So there's new regulations coming into the industry the whole time. So you've got to be on top of that. And I think you as a founder probably are closest to what those true pain points are, what's going on in the industry, those success stories, and helping the team tell those stories, I think has been the biggest learning. So yeah, I still directly manage the team, and I think that will probably continue for a good while.
Yeah, I made the same. Like you say, I mean, calling it mistake's a funny thing to call it. So I agree with the reason you hesitated to call it a mistake. But I think that it's clearer in my mind now that I think about sales as a gateway to doing decent product management. If you're going to be the CEO or a founder of a product-led organization, like getting too far away from the customers and like doing the odd bit of user research or something is just not the same, is it, as getting your ass handed to you on a cold call.
Totally. And I think that you've got to, when you are, especially it's one thing when you've got, I always think of this as we have to create category awareness and category consideration. If we can do that, people will choose Slick as a brand. The biggest challenge is the category. It's actually, why should I use paper versus software? You've got to make a case for why should people be using software first. Once we get that kind of mindset change, suddenly it's, okay, well, yeah, I'll have a look at Slick and our price point, our support levels, the product. We don't do contracts, we do the setup, we onboard them. It makes a very easy decision to choose our product, but it's really a kind of category thing of a lot of these competitors were built for the big chains. They were built in the 2000s. And so these are enterprise pieces of kit, which they're great if you're running 15 salons and you've got a marketing director, you've got a finance director, you've got an ops director. But they're not suitable for somebody who's got 2 staff, one of whom only works 3 days a week.
Well, how is the market spread, Rob? Like, I totally get like the individual barber. I think many of us will experience that. Literally a single site, and we all know Tony and Guy. Let's say,
yeah.
Like, what's in the middle of that? Like, what does the mid market of salons look like? Is it common? Because like in restaurant world, it's quite. You see new restaurants emerging all the time, don't you? And kind of growing and scaling, becoming sort of niche boutique casual dining brands. I'm not so aware of that in the hair industry, but is it what percentage try and scale up?
Very few.
Really?
So I think it's about 90% of UK hair and beauty businesses are under 5 staff, 6 staff.
Wow.
It's the definitive. One of our kind of advisors is ex-Just Eat. He helped them sort of scale an IPO, and the similarities with the kind of the fast food industry are very, very similar. It's
right. You mean like local takeaways, right?
Exactly,
the various
local
cuisines.
Takeaways. Exactly. Yeah. And I think it only came to me about a year ago. The reason that it's so hard to scale a hair and beauty business and have multiple sites is it's a creative industry. And so what I need to do is, if I want to open a branch in Chiswick, cool, I need to find a couple of good colorists, a couple of good stylists in Chiswick. If I then want to replicate that and have the same brand, the same look, feel, vision, I need to find other stylists who then want to cut hair, color hair in a similar way.
Mm.
And that's one thing to do it over two market towns, like you, I'm from Essex. So I'm going to have one branch in Saffron Walden, one in Thaxted. But if I then want to have one in Surrey, one in Hampshire, one in Bristol, everyone's got different ways of cutting hair. Everyone's got different visions of what a good hair looks like. It's very different to a restaurant where there's only so many ways you can cook a burger.
Yeah,
like I've got a recipe for a burger. It's a patty. It's 2 slices of lettuce, not 3, 2. 1 slice of cheese that we all kind of buy on bulk. Like, it's a very kind of precise, formulaic way of doing it, which you can scale. Hair is much harder to scale. Everyone's individualistic. Everyone wants to do it their own way, and I think that's why it's been so challenging for people to scale. So it's a very, very fragmented market.
I suppose also that if you're a talented local stylist, there's like the only barrier really is being willing to sign for a lease and then the fit out as well, right? So I guess a bit like recruitment business. I mean, there are some scale recruitment businesses, but like it sort of lends itself to small scale entrepreneurialism as well. I can see why you're so attracted to and interested in the market. So it sounds like most of your learnings have been around go to market. When you and I have talked previously, you've always been really generous with other founders about sharing what you know, kind of outside the mainstream VC marketing industrial complex. Like, would you just mind riffing on some of the things that you've learned that maybe folks won't have heard on the big venture capital podcasts?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is staying very close to, your market. Well, you should know your market better than anyone, and I think we've heard a lot of people kind of try to apply parallels from different industries that we, in theory, should learn from. I think you've got to treat it with a pinch of salt. Some of it can be useful, but I think you've got to ultimately back your own intuition and your own sort of knowledge. But I think also there's a lot of basic learnings that are out there that do get missed, like how to set up the basics of like a good CRM system. Like, think about it, right? What are you going to need in a year's time? What data should you be starting to collect? Like, if I know what I know now, the stuff that we've been starting to collect on payments, you could have built up a real ecosystem of data that you could be then using further down the line.
Is there an example that's kind of that's in your mind's eye at the moment? I should talk about that.
So we, with Stripe, we launched our in-store payments earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. So massive opportunity, both in terms of revenue, but also in terms of stickiness. And one of our investors wants to have called us sort of Shopify for salons. And so we ultimately provide everything they need: CRM, marketing, payments, e-commerce, online booking, inventory management, you name it. Now, if we'd known that we were going to be, if I'd known the importance of data and actually having a really strong CRM, we could have started capturing in year one people's payment rates, what providers starting to understand what the makeup of the UK salon and barber market looks like, what type of profiles are cash only, because that still exists, what profile are bank transfer only, that exists, who's got the lion's share of the market, what are their price points, and you can start to build up that data very, very early. And again, it sort of sounds obvious, and I think if you're a second-time founder, that's you'll know that. But if you're a first-time founder, a lot of the VC kind of advice is almost much more macro, and it's not actually that applied. And I think there's often a dearth of applied learnings and applied guidance that could be given, and almost as and when, maybe if I do ever get the credibility to write that kind of that go-to-market playbook of these, they're just it's the simple shit that you wish you had learned. And that it's almost everyone thinks it's so obvious that I don't need to teach anyone that, because everyone surely must know that. And everyone else is going around going, well, no, I wish somebody had told me that.
It's so true.
Pricing, thinking about hiring. There's so much stuff that I think is obvious in hindsight, and I think a lot of people do overlook because they want to talk about something more glamorous and something deeper, and they sound much more intelligent because they've got a great point about X. But actually, a lot of it is just the basics. Do the basics really well, and you're going to be successful.
It's interesting. I completely agree with you, and I found that a sort of related example to that. I really misunderstood the difference between delegation and abdication, like early in my first time founder journey, and I think it was because it's very popular and lazy kind of fortune cookie advice that you hear to say, hire great people and then like get out of their way. Like it's slightly more nuanced, and it takes more time to say, make sure you understand the jobs that you're asking people to do and roughly how you want them to do them, so that you can be like ultimately accountable and responsible for supporting, making sure you got the right person, and then supporting them and being successful in the role. Like, kind of to do that, you need to know what successful is. Literally nobody ever said that to me until I'd spent 3 years not having any idea like why things weren't working exactly the way I expected them to in my organization, and had to go all the way back to the root of like, what are the roles, what am I expecting them to do, how do I measure performance or otherwise. And it's just not glamorous, is it? It's exactly the same as when you talk about setting up your systems of record so that it tells you, like, it's your cockpit for the business, right? But
Yeah,
it's amazing how much advice first time founders get is just go fast and don't worry about flying blind.
yeah, exactly. Like we one of our earliest investments was from L'Oreal, and so they were very keen to sort of to roll out. So we went super quickly, and we probably did. We went to market far too early. Actually, if we held back and had some confidence in our opinions, and actually sort of stood up against the big corporate and said, look, no, we're not ready to launch. We need X, Y, Z, and then we can go to market. We'd have probably been even more successful. But again, they're the hindsights that you just don't realise. And again, it's great to sort of to take that away, and that's the kind of stuff that you do want to share. Because I think it's very easy. You get money and then you want to go and spend it all, and everyone's saying, "Oh, you need this. You need a growth marketing person. You need this function, this function, this function." And yeah, there is a broad playbook for B2B SaaS or fintech or D2C, but I think everyone's different, and you've got to work out what your audience want, who your audience are, even what is your ICP. Keep it really tight. I think that again, that's where we've potentially sort of slipped, is not being tight enough, because you want to fish in a big pond, whereas actually, yeah, often you want to fish in a quite a small pond to start with,
Uh,
because you start to know your audience better.
I totally agree. So if you were angel investing, say sometime in the future, and
Yeah.
you take on a portfolio of first time founders, do you have any kind of sense of when you'd be pushing someone to step on the gas? Because it does feel like a very European thing. I feel like in America, I used to think it was crazy that they'd put potentially millions of pounds into an organization with zero revenue and not put them under any pressure to generate revenue early on. It was only having rushed to accumulate revenue too early in my own journey that I started to see, when it's not taken too far, the wisdom of that. If you were angel investing, like, do you have any feel for like at what point you start to be uncomfortable that the portfolio company isn't accumulating really material revenue growth?
It's a good question. I think it's all about understanding what does your kind of product market fit look like, and how does that intersect with revenue? Because you can start generating revenue from something relatively basic, but then equally you're then pushing water uphill. You could wait a little bit longer and actually build out something kind of more substantial, provided you validated it, knowing that you're then going to go quicker. And I think I guess that's what we did, was we actually probably went a little bit too early. And so our revenue graph is just constant, solid progress. At no point do we have a real kind of sort of kick of that sort of classic hockey stick. And I think it's trying to understand that intersect between, okay, well, what point does the product get to a point where you can make meaningful revenue, whether that be pricing commensurate with the market, not underpricing, your conversion rates, your top of the funnel awareness. I think that's the crucial bit for me.
Yeah, and actually, I admire the fact that you did give a nuanced answer, because here I am criticizing sort of industrial complex VC literature that misleads a lot of first time founders. And then I'm like, hey, Rob, can you just give a pithy one line summary of when you should put on the burners of building revenue?
But it's hard because you think that you think, and we've seen it before, you deliver X feature and you think, right, that's going to be the thing that really unlocks X percent of the market. Does it? No, of course not. And I think that's been probably the biggest learning, is that, again, sounds very obvious, but it's easier said than done. Is No one gives a flying crap about your feature. It's the story you can tell. It's the benefit that you can bring, and especially with, I think, fragmented B2B, I often think of it more like, in some ways, B2C or D2C. It's that
Right.
you're building a community. People want to be using something that other successful people are using. And there is a bit of a herd mentality, and we see it of our about 30% of our inbound comes from organic referrals, and it's very hard to track
Oh,
because
wow.
they're in Facebook groups, on WhatsApp chats. Who are you using? Who are you using? I hate my current system. What are you? Any recommendations? Yeah, use Slick. They're great. We love them because of X, Y, Z. Um, and so there is that. We get some real pockets of where we probably have 30-40% market share, because actually we've got a couple of people on board. They then refer another couple of people, and you become almost the de facto choice for a business in that town, that village. Um, and I think that gets super exciting. But that's because of the. It's not because of X feature. It's because of the brand, the community that we've built.
Yeah, it does take
Um,
time for that because that's not really something you can fake, is it? And so I think as
no,
a first timers do have to be patient, make sure that they're financially sustainable. However they do that, revenue, investment, whatever, get their life in order to be able to take the time to get to the point where it starts compounding and starts getting fun.
yeah, and I think you've made the right point of take time, because I think it's very easy to, and very exciting to go and scale and hire a massive team, whether that be sales, whether that be customer success, whatever it might be. But again, you need to, it's what you said, you need to understand the role first. You need to understand what good looks like. Um, and one of our investors, he's a guy called Nick Telson. He founded Design by Night, and he talks a lot about this, of actually almost going a lot slower,
Mm.
both from a product point of view, but also from a team point of view. Understand what your sales cadence looks like. Once you've got it, then you can start to invest. Then you can start to actually hire. Whereas a lot of people just put out, right, we need 4 AEs, we need four SDRs. Okay, do you actually know what you want? Do you know what the frameworks are? Do you know what the common objections are? Are you really clear on your ICP? Are you clear on your onboarding process? Because once you've got all that really clear, then you can turn up the dial.
Yeah, I
But I think
completely agree.
the temptation is to go super quick, because look, everyone sees these companies hiring, raising lots of money. You get the pressure from VCs, institutional, but often going a little bit slower. And I think with the current climate, I think there is probably a bit more of a trend to, let's build slowly, organically, more capital, with more sort of capital efficiency. So I think there is the trend is certainly pushing that way, but certainly that's been my experience, and I think that's what I would be 100% advocating.
Yeah, I mean, the great mistake I made in trying to ramp sales too early and then burning an inordinate amount of the capital that I had on that was I didn't understand the difference between early adopters and the majority of the market. So I had a good pitch down for early adopters that were excited about what we were doing. There just weren't that many of them. They weren't representative of the market. So I sort of understood one subset of customers, but not really the customer. But I really hope people listen when they hear advice like that. To don't be a wimp. If it's working, then fine, scale. But don't be bullied into rushing to scale
Yeah,
if you don't get it yet, because you might not get another try. Right, you might not survive
no,
if you run out of money.
no. If you've got money, like, you're in a great place. And I think everyone's always worried that there's going to be someone else is going to come and eat your lunch. There'll be another person that launches a similar idea, and yeah, sure, there will be. But you've got to have confidence in your execution, your brand, the way you're going to do it. That, yeah, that extra couple of months isn't going to be make or break. If someone else launches, cool. So what? Like, we've seen, we take market share from companies that raised millions, like literally 2, 3, 400 million. Um, yeah, stay in your lane, concentrate on what you do well, keep tight on ICP, and you'll be fine. And I think it does sound very unglamorous. It doesn't. It's in some ways it sounds quite sort of defensive, but I think certainly in the current climate, allows hopefully to build us a very profitable business.
That's very cool and amazing advice. What's next for Slick as you look sort of 1 to 3 years over the horizon? Like what should people be watching because as they follow your stuff on LinkedIn and story from the company?
So payments is a big thing for us. A lot of 60% of the staff in the wider industry are sole traders, so they're self-employed. And so there's a lot of opportunity around essentially revenue share payments, whereby on a £50 cut, £25 goes to the sole trader, £25 goes to the limited company, in which you are currently renting a chair, and they have a revenue share agreement. And if we can, what we're looking to do is essentially automate that payroll revenue share. So that's a big opportunity for us. It's really building out that ecosystem. So currently we've got very strong product market fit for hair, barbering. Beauty is a big opportunity that's growing a lot in the UK. So we're looking to expand our ICP audience. And then really, I think our view is very much the UK market. A lot of our investors and sort of advisors have said the UK market is tough. If you can crack the UK market, you're in a very good position to then expand. And so for us, we could. It's a SaaS product. It's very easy to expand internationally. We've already got a pilot in the UAE, but we could be in France, Germany in a month's time. But again, just keep tight, keep disciplined, and let's get to a really good point where we have UK market dominance, and then we can then go international. So that in the next couple of years, that would be what we'd look to do. But yeah, it's fragmented from a customer point of view. It's very fragmented from a provider point of view. So there's about 40, 50 providers all doing roughly the same thing. So it's a very acquisitive space. So there'll be a lot of M&A going on in the next few years, especially as obviously capital dries up. So that's going to be quite interesting to see how that plays out.
That's awesome, though, to be like, okay, we're going to keep our head down. There's an amazing opportunity here. If we just keep executing, the next steps will become evident. There he is, the fluent French speaker drinking his own champagne. Rob, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're very generous on LinkedIn with other founders. If people are interested in what you're doing, happy for them to reach out to you there. If I put your contact link in the show notes.
100%. Again, as I don't profess to know everything at all, but I think there are lots of learnings that I guess we've taken away, and if I can help anyone, then very happy to help.
Amazing, we appreciate that. All right, great to speak to you, mate. Thank you.
Brilliant. Cheers, Rob. Take care, mate. Thanks so much. Bye.